Drew, it's your job to talk about Dark Waters, isn't it?
It is indeed, Craig. It is indeed.
Is this film about scandal, corruption, and death hastened by capitalism going to lift our spirits any?
Well, I'm going to go with no.
Oh. It's got Ruffers in it though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what we're calling him, is it? Can we not?
Ruffers? He's always been Ruffers to me.
I prefer to think of him as the Ruffalo.
Can I just say, not to name drop, boys, ever since he quoted my tweet, I've had a lot of love for the Ruffers in my heart.
Was this a tweet where you called him the Ruffers? Or?
No, in our many personal interactions, I've never actually referred to Mark Ruffalo as the Ruffers, but he'll always be Ruffers to me. I think I went too far the time I tried to cuddle him. Sorry, we digress. Mark Ruffalo's great. What's happening with that Columbo thing? Probably nothing at the moment. Nothing's happening with anything at the minute, is it?
Apparently, it's well, because I mentioned that connection with Columbo in my review, Craig, so you'll find out.
Oh.
I looked it up tonight, and apparently he's in a fight. Well, how these things are reported. In a fight with Natasha Lyonne to be the person who gets to be in the Columbo reboot. It definitely shouldn't be her.
Wait, what? I thought I'd seen on-set pictures of him dressed as Columbo.
Maybe, I don't know, but this was a fairly recent news article, but again, I was only just briefly looking through it just to see if anything was happening. But
Natasha Lyonne?
Yes.
It's political correctness gone mad. What?
Yes.
I'm really sorry, right? I'm really regretting the fact that I took us off on a tangent now. Drew, I'm really sorry. I apologise to you. I hasten on with your review because otherwise I'm going to explode in a minute. What?
Okay. So, Mark Ruffalo's Rob Bilott is a successful corporate lawyer for a big Cincinnati firm and has just become a partner or associate or something good anyway. I'm not quite sure how this firm works. Things are looking up for him and his wife, Sarah, Anne Hathaway, and likely would have carried on like 100,000 other lawyers if it wasn't for the entry into his life of Wilbur Tennant, played by Bill Camp, a farmer from Bilott's grandmother's town of Parkersburg, West Virginia. Tennant dumps a load of videotapes on Rob, and says a bunch too, but I had to rely on the subtitles in another language to actually know what the farmer's issue is because I couldn't understand a bloody word Camp said, though I appreciate the passion with which the actor said it. Or failed to. In short, nearly 200 of his cattle have died or been killed due to health issues and deformities, and he's rightly miffed. Tennant lays the blame at the feet of the giant chemical company DuPont, whose Teflon-producing factory is nearby. At first dismissive, Bilott begins to look into the story and finds evidence of a massive cover-up by one of the world's largest chemical companies that has affected the health of the occupants of an entire town. He's given the go-ahead by his superior, Tom Terp, played by Tim Robbins, and begins to sue DuPont and demand their paperwork, resulting in the not-at-all childish response of delivering a veritable mountain of files to his office, dating back to at least the 1950s. The case will then consume him for the next 20 years, but he'll be determined to see justice done. As far as the plot goes, that's largely it. I've only seen 3 Todd Haynes directed films before now. Far From Heaven, I'm Not There, and Carol, and all of those were, let's say, not brilliant, or bad. Bad is what I mean. And one of them had The Enemy in it. Shudder. Had I noted the director's previous work before watching this, I might have tempered my expectations somewhat and been less disappointed. Not that Dark Waters is a bad film. It's leaps and bounds ahead of those other 3 that I mentioned. I'm left feeling quite underwhelmed. The trailer gives the impression of this being something like Erin Brockovich with a man, with a bit of The Insider or The Rainmaker, and I'm a sucker for that sort of film. Now, The Rainmaker's not brilliant, but it is probably the best thing Francis Ford Coppola has done in the last 35 years. And at the risk of alienating Craig, I continue to enjoy Erin Brockovich and think that his enemy is well cast as the nippy sweetie that is the main character.
You're dead to me.
This will be the only time you hear me say this about her, though. But it's not like that, as the trailer put it, though perhaps it is more realistic in some regards. The trailer goes out of its way, and I wish the creators of trailers would cut this misleading shit out. It's ultimately counterproductive. to suggest that Billot is fighting against interested parties within his own law firm and that his task is hindered by more by malice and corruption than by public ignorance, an overwhelming amount of data, an imperfect and unwieldy legal system, and a mind-bendingly messed up regulatory framework. There is some of that nasty stuff to be sure, but contrary to the trailer, Tim Robbins' character actively supports Billot's case, even going so far as to shut down arguments that the firm could lose corporate business by pointing out that this is why Americans hate lawyers. I appreciate this, and based as it is on a true story, and while it may lose dramatic excitement due to the lack of up-close and personal villainy, it can still make for compelling viewing. But Dark Waters is merely alright. The best thing about the film is clearly Mark Ruffalo, perfect as the round-shouldered, slightly shabby, regular guy lawyer. And as we have just mentioned, Ruffalo has been linked with the role of Columbo for years, and it would be perfect
Columbo,
casting.
yeah.
But Bill Camp and Tim Robbins aside, there aren't really many memorable characters. Craig will be grateful that Bill Pullman isn't in it long enough to make much impression, but no one else really does so either. I have no idea why Anne Hathaway's in this at all, as she has sod all to do, except be in the scene where she complains that Rob's obsessed with this case and has given up on his family, which is presumably there because these sorts of films demand such scenes.
I had no idea she was even in it.
Rather than due to any good reason like it had ever been established before that point, or had any impact on the action going forward. The structure is problematic too, with large jumps forward in time accompanied with title cards that feel like they want to be considered meaningful and important, rather than what their messages of 4 years later etc. actually convey, which is, I guess it's been a while then. And odd bits where Ruffalo explains the basic problem and crimes to 3 different people at once in an oddly edited sequence for the audience's benefit. This seems particularly egregious when even the least attentive viewer would have had little trouble with, you know, all those dead cows and people and cancer and such. Well, DuPont made this nasty chemical, dumped into the water supply and pretended it didn't exist.
Dead cows and cancer. It's enough to be getting on with.
The gets. And at one point, Blot has an epiphany after looking at the cover of a children's book called Funny Teeth, and there is the momentary journey to the point of view of a deranged cow. This material deserves better. DuPont really is the devil, and while the muted, sickly colour palette is fitting, I don't know quite why Haynes and cinematographer Ed Lachman worked so hard to make this film feel like it was set in the 70s when Billot's story begins in 1997. Not unenjoyable, but ultimately lacking.
Well, I haven't watched this, so I can't proffer an opinion. But I'm disappointed because I was kind of looking forward to watching this. But maybe
I had really been looking forward to it, and I am really quite disappointed.
It has almost everything in it that I feel I should like. I don't really have any particular complaints about any aspect of its production or the end product of it, other than the central story is basically interesting enough for a 5-minute recap. It really does not seem like the kind of story that deserves to have a film made about it, or at least this film made about it. If you were going to go into a bit more depth into either Ruffalo's character or perhaps something more about the kind of the processes in DuPont, then maybe. But the way this has come out, it feels like it's a 30-minute story that's been extracted into about 90 odd minutes, and it just felt a bit stretched to me. It didn't really hold my attention for an awful lot of it. It just dragged an awful lot, which is a real shame, because as I say, I'm actually behind most of the production aspects of this. It felt like it should be a good film. It felt like it should be a film that I was completely on board with, but I've got to be honest, I found it all kind of dull.
Yeah, that's the problem I have, Scott. I'm not too far away from you, I don't think. It's based on a magazine article, a New York Times magazine article,
yeah,
and it feels like it.
Exactly.
There's not the content there.
Those greatest of trailer words, based on a magazine article.
Like, it's a really important story that everyone should know about. I mean, particularly given that, I think Flint's water supply is still on fire. and unrelated corporate fuck-ups. But, it's the sort of thing we should be more conscious of, and we should all be cognizant of going forward and how we can't trust these people. But still, this film just doesn't quite nail it so hard. Which is
It's the kind of stuff we should all be more conscious about, but the chemicals in the water are dulling our brains. God damn it.
Get that fluoride out of there.
Yes, I will gladly forgo my teeth for the truth. Oh man, are we 0 for 3 so far?
Certainly unanimously.
Yes.